it's wonderful that I'm connecting with you, and I just love it that I'm talking to you today, and it's a privilege that I get to talk to you today.
It's a privilege for me as well. I mean, it's a always a pleasure, uh, doing something like this. I love it.
Sir, tell me that everyone has a different definition for architecture. So, what does architecture mean for you?
Architecture to me is art with engineering. So architecture is actually a form of engineering, but
Yeah.
then there is an arty angle to it, and that's why it becomes like a creative field. And I love this field because uh, I think it's got everything in it. And being an architect, I think today it's a different thing. But when I started architecture, you had to know everything. An architect was everything. He had to know everything. It was a know all person was an architect. So at that time there were no MEP consultants. There were MEP consultants, but in the larger projects where you used to have MEP consultants. But in our times, when we started with single buildings and even towers and all, initially there were no MEP consultants. We used to do the drainage, the plumbing. We used to sit with the contractors for the plumbing, and we used to do it for the electrical. We used to give all the electrical points and everything, and the panels and all. We used to work with an electrical contractor. Then slowly we started, MEP consultants came in, and then it became like a kind of a more specialized field where we got MEP consultants, we got green building consultants, an elevator traffic consultant, and all these consultants came in. But initially when we started, it was just art with architecture to me, and that's how I define architecture.
Wonderful, sir. And at that point of time, if you try to analyze that, what was the difference when you just started with your practice at that point of time versus the practice that you're doing right now?
uh, I think at that point of time there was a lot of respect an architect used to command, just because you were everything, and everything used to go through you. And as a designer and an architect, even when we got in the consultants, they used to come and get into our umbrella, and they used to work under us, and they used to then we used to present the drawings to the client with all the inputs from the all the consultants. But today I feel there's a lot of it's not too good, because I feel that time we had a lot of more respect than today. Clients have become very I think, because of a lot of the things that have taken place, and a lot of architects that have not done ethical things, architects are
Too
not
much because
respect
of
that. So I think at the point of time when we started, we had a lot more respect than we have today.
very true, sir. Very true. And the second question that I would like to ask over here is that you have been working around the globe. You have been working in India. You have been working abroad. So when you compare architecture around the globe versus architecture that's happening in India, what is the major difference that you find over there?
Uh, Actually, every city or every country has its own challenges, if you look at it. But then you got to adapt to those challenges. You got to adapt to those social style of living, and then you got to design. So you just can't go ahead and design like a building that is there in Mumbai, you put it up in San Francisco, you put a building which is there in Mumbai, put it up in Dubai, or vice versa. So you have to actually first study the environment. You have to study the surrounding. You have to do a lot of basic understanding of the type, the style, the way people live in, and after that you should design. I mean, that's my way of looking at things. Otherwise, then architecture is the same wherever you do. It's a creative field. You can create anything anywhere, but it's you got to keep the social and the local elements of the style of living and the way of living in every destination.
Right. So, would you like to mention any of your favorite projects that you've done in India versus and you would really like to compare that to the projects which are going abroad, and you see that it's up it's up to that mark of getting compared to any of the projects abroad.
So if you see, there are a lot of projects that we've done. I go back, because that was very much in the initial years of my career when we did the Marine Plaza Hotel in Mumbai, and we it was an old existing building. It was not a greenfield site. We could not do much to the exterior because of the heritage and the Art Deco skyline that is there on Marine Drive. But uh, whatever we did was internal, and it was an existing building. It had a choke in the center, like all the old buildings have, and the staircase was inside, and there were all drain pipes and all going in down from there, because it was a residential building converted to a hotel. It was not built as a hotel. So we cleared up the entire center and we made it into an atrium, and we moved the staircases, we put in glass elevators, and the client wanted to do a pool as well, because they wanted to do it like a 5 star. They wanted to take all the criterias, all the check boxes, that is required for a 5 star. They wanted to tick. So we had to do a pool. The building was existing around, so we put the pool. We thought the only place to put the pool was on the atrium, and we put the pool on the atrium. When we were putting the pool on the atrium, we saw that we're going to just make the entire atrium into a, even in the daytime we got to put the lights on, and it's not going to be very pleasing. It'll be very dull. So we started doing some research, coming up with different ideas how we could get in some light inside. Eventually we came up with this thought of doing a glass bottom pool, and that was it. So we started doing research for how do we get in a glass that could take the weight of water. It could take the the expansion contraction, because outside it was hotter and inside was warm. Inside was cold because of the AC, and then outside was hot. And the other thing was your the water, how it heats up and how it would react on the glass, and the expansion contraction between the glass and the concrete, the joints. We wanted to take care so it doesn't leak, and we thought that was the best way to do the pool with a glass bottom, so that the light comes in. And we did that with different 5, 6 panels, and each panel, the glass is a 44 thick plexiglass, and it's all laminated, and we achieved that. It was a big challenge doing it at that point of time. It was in the year 97, 98 when we did that. And I mean, we didn't have all the technology, but we did it, and it's successfully been there for almost 20 years. So that was one of the challenge projects of mine,
That that
and I
that
really love
looks
that
big.
project.
That looks big because that kind of a project at in that year '95 would have really been a challenge because technology was still to be developed in India at that point of time. And I think
Hmm.
that's a great job at that point of time. So,
Yeah.
sir, my next question would go in, for the younger generation, that how do you feel that this new generation of leading architects, how do you feel that they are working, and what are the challenges that they are facing as per you?
Uh, I think I came from, at least from the old school, where we came from the drafting board and the sketch pencil and the T square, the set square, the tracing paper, the ammonia prints, and So we came from the old school. So when we finished architecture, we got into actually working. Uh, you know, our pencil was our tool, and it was, like, whenever anybody wanted something, you just hand went into the pocket, you pulled the pencil out, and you started sketching. So, and I feel that, to get your heart into the project, the sketching is very important. Whereas today's youth, they are very tech savvy, and they are very computer savvy, and
Right.
they just go ahead, and when you tell them to do something, they just go onto the computer and they start uh, on the computer without giving, I feel they don't put in their heart into it. Yes, there are very good softwares that are there. You can actually, when we used to work, it was with 2D. Sketching was always in 2D. Whereas, today you can just, start, and then you do in SketchUp, or you do in any of these softwares, Rhino, or, all these softwares, and you can immediately turn the building around. You can see the building in three-dimensional, and you can actually go through the building, you can walk into the building. Whereas we used to make sketches of each of the points or places, or we used to do sections, and then we used to do, you know all those kind of working. So that was a different era, and today it's a total different era. It is good in a way, because earlier when we used to work, there were limited projects that you could do. Today I feel each architect can do multiple projects because of the speed that you get on the computer, because of the quality of drawings, and the, with BIM, you can actually see all the, services integrated. You can see the structural beams, the columns, everything coming in, and you can check and you can correct it today itself before you get onto the site. Because in the previous times, what used to happen is, there were times when, a beam came, and it, the pipe was going through it, and then you had to open it, or you had to divert the pipe, or there were so many things that we had to actually do it. But today's case, we can actually uh, see everything before you start the work. You can actually fly through, you can drive through, and you can do the project even before you start the project. Then getting quantities, etc., is much easier today with all the softwares that is there. So actually, the computers have changed the whole style of working, and I think the new architects, they need to brush their skills for sketching, and they need to understand that, architecture is not about just going onto the computer and starting with things. You've got to put
Right.
in your heart into it. As I always
Right.
feel, architecture is art plus engineering. It's not only engineering.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I actually, in the YouTube channel that I run, a lot of students are there. A lot of them ask that, which is the software that we should learn. So I always suggest them that the first software that you should learn is, how to sketch yourself.
Absolutely.
That's the biggest software that you can get.
I agree with
And
you.
again, that I face with the younger generation is the kind of patience that is required in the field of architecture, that they are lacking somewhere.
Yes.
The first thing they want to know is that how much they can earn out of it.
Hmm.
You know,
True.
whereas if we put up across a video about BIM as a software, hardly people are viewing those videos. So
Right.
people should, younger generation should focus more on these kind of learning skills. So
Yeah.
next question that I want to ask you, sir, is that what is your suggestion for the young generation architect? What is your personal suggestion for them?
See, actually, I would like to, I've been telling a lot of my team, as well as, my family who's got into architecture, looking at me, they got into architecture. Like you said, they don't have the patience. They feel, that they want to start doing big things without even learning the baby steps. You have to go through the entire 360 degrees to actually start working on a project properly. I've seen students just come out and they say, oh, we know everything, and we are going to start on our own. or they come in and within 6 months they want to start their own practice. uh, I think that's a very wrong way of actually doing that, because what happens is you haven't been through a process of completing an entire building. Because when you come out of college, you may have passed first class, but till you do not go through the actual working, because academics and actual working are two different things. So you have to actually go through the process. You have to see how the building starts, that from the designing inception, from the concept, where how you start, what you get from the client, how you take it up, how you implement it, and then how the building is delivered. So I would say they should go through their entire process before even thinking that they want to start. So that is one of the points. The other point, what I would like to emphasize on is, you know, I like, if you look at the international firms, the global firms, most of them are 100 years firms or 200 years firms, where the architect was a principal architect who started the firm, and then they started getting in partners in there. And after the partners, they grew so much, they had different offices globally, and it's a big this thing. And I know some of them which are listed on the stock exchange. So they do not understand something, that why not we, as a solicitor or as a lawyer, where there are so many of them working under one brand, they should get onto one brand. Everybody cannot be specialized in everything. So as an architect, when the project comes into the company, especially like the larger projects, you need to have the expertise for every, like if it's a mixed use, it's got commercial, it's got retail, it's got a hotel, it's got apartments, it's got other angles to it. So if there is a team of architects, if there is partners in an architectural firm, everybody has his specializing skills. You can work together, and the end result and the product that would be there, it would be a much better product than having an individual working on a large scale project.
Very true, sir. Very true. That's a very important point that you have actually placed in for the young generation. And again, sir, the next question that I would like to ask you is something that if you want to answer, you can answer on it. Is what is your opinion about the Architects Act and the recent judgment which has happened over the Architects Act?
Uh, Again, I would like the same thing. What I just mentioned is that you may have the skills to do something, but you have to be. Education is very important. You have to go through the education steps, and you come out and you graduate and you start working. Without which, you may not be aware of a lot of things. And what's going to happen is, you can build your own house, but you cannot build a large project without being an architect, without having studied architecture, without having studied basic these things. There are a lot of projects which you see, a lot of buildings which have collapsed because there are interior designers who just pass out from interior. They've been to 3 months and 6 months and all those courses, and they think they know everything. They come on a site and then they start breaking beams and structural elements and everything, and there have been collapses that have taken place. They do not understand that you can't put a electrical box into a column. You can't do a lot of things. They just say, because of the lack of knowledge, and the expertise are not there. So it's like somebody driving without a license, and if he meets with an accident, what happens?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. You can do a project, one project of your own or something, but you can't do large projects without being a proper architect. So you have to go through that whole cycle to become an architect. In India, still we are fine. because you just go and get registered with the Council of Architecture, and you can start practicing and you can sign drawings and everything. Whereas in US, you have to pass your architecture. After you pass your architecture, you have to work for 250 hours with a licensed architect. He has to certify you. After you are certified, then you can go and you can appear for an exam. You've got to appear for 7 exams in California, and the other states of America, you got to appear for 6 exams. Once you pass those exams, then you can get the signing. You have the rights of signing a drawing, or you can say, AIA registered or NCARB registered. So you can't be an architect without having all those qualifications.
Right.
You can do a house, but then you can't do a large project without being an architect.
Right.
So because there are a lot of things that you got to know. All these exams that are there, one is about the codes, the other is about the structural codes. Although you're not doing designing structure, but you got to know those basic things of an structure. Handicap is there, how you treat the handicap, how the movements have to take place. All these codes are very important. In India, we don't have all these codes yet, so it's fine. But overseas, you're not allowed to practice without having all these exams passed. The worst one in California is the seismic. That's the earthquake, because it's on the fault line. So yeah, you have to be a qualified person. You don't go to a doctor who's not a doctor. So how can you go and ask somebody to design your house or design your building when he's not an architect?
True, and that's where that identification of an architect is really becoming important in India, because a lot of people, most of the people even don't know what's the role of an architect, and they end up hiring the wrong people for doing that, and that is where Architects Welfare Association as a body is working on, where the first motive is to make people understand the role of an architect. The second motive
Right,
is obviously to make a stronger ground for the future generation to come and work in. Right as you
right,
said that you get a license from Council of Architecture, but you need to have a 5 years degree course to have that license from Council of Architecture.
right.
Nobody.
As I've seen, because a lot of trainees come to us, and we see, a lot of the trainees, after they have passed out, also do not understand a lot of things.
True.
So that is why you got to work. Even in the professional practice period, I know people come to us and they say, "Oh, I want to do a professional training with you." Okay, fine, you come. I don't have a seat. No problem. He'll sit in your this thing. He'll bring his own laptop and he'll do something. But that's not it. You are supposed to be working on a live project when you are doing a professional practice this thing. But
That's so
I
very
don't think
important.
that is followed in India as well.
Yeah, that's so very important, and that's something that we should also take care while we are giving training to our the students who are coming in for trainings. Architecture firms should also take care that they are given that kind of focus, and they are giving that kind of exposure. That's something that architecture firms should work on.
Right. No, that is one thing. The trainee also who comes in should have the inbuilt this thing to learn.
Very true.
There are a lot of people who come and they just want to, they say, okay, no problem. I have got a 6 months training, but I'll come for 3 months. You can give me a certificate.
That's right.
So
That happens a lot of
I
times.
mean, yeah, I mean, you are yourself, saying, oh, it's okay. So you're
Yeah.
taking things lightly.
Yeah. If you don't have that urge to learn, you won't learn architecture so fast,
Absolutely. You
because that's tough.
architecture is not, if you don't have the arty angle to architecture, you can't do anything.
Right.
You may be good at softwares, but you have to see how to use those softwares to design in a good fashion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks a lot, sir. I think that those were some, really valuable pointers that you have given to, us and the entire fraternity, also to the young architects. And I'm really thankful that, and I thank you
Right.
on behalf of Architects Welfare Association that you've given your time to us this evening and, given us the value pointers. Uh,
Most welcome.
Thanks a lot, sir, and I really thank you for coming for giving your time for this evening.
Thanks for having me over, and I hope that the students or the guys viewing the channel should take something out of it. They should take something good out of it rather, and come up as good architects.
Absolutely, sir. Yeah. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.